Alright, this is the Janome Cover Pro 1000 CPX. Quick overview. Use EL by 705 needles. Absolutely critical. Other ones will fit, but you're going to have good results with these. Size 14. It doesn't relate the same way as regular sewing machine needle sizes, where 14 would be for denim. You can get them in size 12, but you're going to have better luck with 14. Even the flimsiest fabrics, I just use 14s for everything, even though regular ones will fit. This is one of the most important things. Threading correctly is also really important, and the manual will show how to do that, and I'll leave the threads in so you can see how to do that. You've got 1, 2, or 3 needle threads. I usually use 2. You can use right middle, middle left, or the outside needles. So right now I've got 2 needles in and right and center, and 1 looper. So the stitches always form with 1 looper and some combination of needle threads. You want to make sure you floss it into this disc really well. You want to make sure you hear it click into this disc. It goes through all 3 guides here. There's a little white knob you pull out, and the looper flips out. And then you can make sure you get that guide at the bottom of the looper. Then you go through the hole on top, and then the left hole of the looper, and you can just leave the thread hanging down to start about 4 inches, and then be sure you push that back in. If it's not stitching, not working, you might have forgotten to push that in. The other important things are thread stand all the way up and handle down. Thread with your presser foot up, of course, like all machines. And then so that's threading, and I know I just went over that fast, but you can look in the guide, and like I say, I'll leave the threads in. This guide you want on the right. Oh my goodness, April! Oh, my cat's destroying. No, 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 no! Oh, okay. Cat was wrecking something over there. Oh my goodness, cat. Where was I? So keep that on the right for loose stitch. The lower knob here is differential. 1 is normal, heavier fabric, so you can use a bigger number. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail there. There's a lot to say about differential. Stitch length, you generally keep it pretty long, like at 4. And then you've got tensions for each of those. So those are all your controls. Now I'm not going to get into the binder, which is a lot more complicated, but I am going to leave the machine set up this way with the binder on it. So just so the pieces don't get, and so no pieces get lost in the box, so it's just so there's no problem there. But it's just, there's 1 screw here that you remove, and then I suggest leaving this binder on the base plate because it's adjusted here perfectly for the left to right. These 2 screws here control the bumpers, and they're adjusted perfectly. You can choose to move those, but you may spend the rest of your life getting them right again. I don't know. I've tinkered with this thing a lot, and it's working perfectly right now. So that's what I suggest is, I'll have it on here, but I would just take the screw off. You can just leave the base plate on here, then you don't have to worry about losing the screw, but then you'll have to redo the adjustment, and that might not be a big deal if you're into tinkering. So like taking these 2 white screws off isn't a big deal. Some people make a mark there to tell the light left to right, but anyway, then there's a little peg that sits in this hole to see, it kind of snaps in there, and that allows you to pivot it. Anyway, so that is going to be attached to the machine. And this clear foot is the binding foot. So you just push in the back, and you can remove that, and then you got your regular foot here. So when you get the machine, I wouldn't mess with the binder unless you're really ambitious. Maybe you can, whatever you want to do. I'm going to put in some binding scraps, like some cut just the right width. You want to use just lightweight, cut to exactly 1.5. I don't have to go into that, but I'll put in some binding. You can play with the binder if you want, but I would take the binding foot off and the binding attachment and change to the regular foot there. Then, yeah, so let's see. There's some fabric here. Then, that's kind of, the setup is really the important thing, the threading and the needles. If you do start to have problems, look at your threading, because sometimes these will unthread themselves and do weird things. So make sure you're threaded correctly and it hasn't changed itself. And then it's just, I like to start, I kind of hold the threads, I don't know if it's necessary, but I like to hold the threads at 10. A nice wide stitch. And the most important thing that's really unusual about cover stitches is how you stop. Some of the really expensive machines chain off, but this one doesn't chain off. Not many of them do. And if you don't take it out correctly, if you don't remove your fabric correctly, you get a rat nest. It can be a it can really cause problems, and your stitch can unravel, your hems can unravel. So it's important to do this correctly, and it's likely a new procedure. It's not hard, you just got to do it right. So the first thing you do when you get to the edge, don't run off the edge, kind of like your regular machine. You don't want to run off the edge, but neither can you just pull it. You can't pull your fabric out. So what you do is you raise the presser foot, you roll the wheel toward you until the needles are in the highest position. You take a tool like this and you swipe it between your fabric and your presser foot so that you pull out your needle threads. And so now I have 4 strands because it's a loop. I've pulled out a loop. Then I'm going to cut off this whole loop. I'm going to cut through all 4. You'd think you could just cut through 2. It just doesn't work as well, because when I cut that, the threads are unspinning and it helps if you remove it. So cut through all 4. Then, so now you've got your needle threads disconnected, but they're still on top, and you've got a looper underneath. So then you pull at 10 o'clock this direction, and you give some little tugs, tug, tug, tug. If it's not coming, take your machine wheel turn it toward you, back until it comes. Sometimes you got to fiddle with it a little, like I did there, and you don't want to force it. You can easily bend and break a looper, but do it until you get it. And then what that does is it pulls your stitches to the back of your project. So then you can tie those off or even put a little fray check on there. So that's the important thing, is ending. And then that sets you up to start again with your threads at 10 o'clock, and you can get your project under there with the needles on top and the looper on the bottom. One more time, you're going to press your foot up, needles highest position, swipe. I usually go back to front, but yeah, whatever. Swipe, clip, tug, tug, tug. And that should get you started. You can look at your stitch. It looks a little tight. This is kind of several layers of heavy fabric. These aren't going to handle super heavy fabric. They're great for small knits. I was just using the binder with a pretty heavy knit, and it worked pretty well for heavy fabric. So anyway, those are the basics to get you started. Lots of potential on this machine. Lots you can do. It's going to be cool.